Welcome to the Grow My Salon Business podcast, where we focus on the business side of hairdressing. I'm your host, Anthony Whitaker, and I'll be talking to thought leaders in the hairdressing industry, discussing insightful, provocative, and inspiring ideas that matter. So get ready to learn, get ready to be challenged, get ready to be inspired, and most importantly, get ready to grow your salon business. Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Grow My Salon Business podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Whitaker, and as I always say, it's great to have you here with us today. And whether you're watching on YouTube or listening as you walk the dog, driving the car, running on the treadmill, or whatever it is you're doing, I just want to start by saying thank you for being a listener to the show. Our podcast is growing and we do need your help to continue growing because, we want to help as many people as we possibly can. So if you're on YouTube, then give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel and share with your friends. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast app, then give us a 5-star review and a follow. And that would be both very kind of you and much appreciated. So with that said, on with today's episode. Today, I'm talking with Eric Fisher from Wichita, Kansas, where he has 4 world-class salons and a school and a business education company. Now, I've admired Eric's business from afar for a number of years, and although we've never met, we do have 2 very good friends in common. And they both described Eric as being extremely talented, one of the nicest guys on the planet, a very astute businessman, and a super all-round nice guy. So I am really looking forward to our conversation today. Now, in today's podcast, we're going to discuss what the key is to building a bigger business, what makes building a big salon business both harder and easier today than it was 30 years ago, and why where you are located shouldn't be something that holds you back, and so much more. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Eric Fisher.
Good to be here, Anthony. Thanks for having me.
Well, Eric, I'm really looking forward to this. We've spent the last, I think, probably about 30, 40 minutes just having a chat. So it's definitely time we push the record button because there's been a lot of great nuggets of wisdom shared already. So look, I want to jump straight in the deep end here, and I want to ask you a question that's a bit deep. But I know you'll be able to handle anything I'm going to throw at you. So what I want to ask you is this. You've been in business a long time. You started in, I think about the 80s with you opened your first salon. And, building a business is never easy. But if you had to give yourself, the 25-year-old version of you, 3 or 4 principles to follow, what would they be?
Well, that's a great question. When I was 25, I wasn't an owner as of yet. I was freelancing and just working all over the place, just having the best time of my life. I would say don't do anything I did in those days. I'm lucky to have survived that. But as a young salon owner, and I probably opened in 1989, it was, it's hard work. But if you're passion driven, you enjoy what you're doing, you look forward to going to work every day, you can be a success. And I think it's inch by inch, day by day. You can't be defined by the challenges that you have. You can't, you're going to fall on your ass. You got to pick yourself up, keep going. So you have to have a good attitude about what you're doing. You have to be, very standard driven. For instance, we hire all our people out of beauty school. They imprint to the standards of our company. We teach them how to cut hair. We have classes all the time. I would say being a learning organization is very important. And the culture of a company, I think that's probably, to me, it's more important than a P&L, just knowing that people have a place to go that they like, that everybody's like-minded. They have the same standards. Like everybody wants to be good hairdressers. Back in those days, we trained everybody. And, today it's a little harder. The kids don't have that intrinsic motivation. I have a beauty school, but they all don't want to come to class. You might get 2 or 3% that really wants to do more, be more, and have more. But basically back then, everybody, we were bringing precision hair cutting to Wichita, Kansas. And I had a job in New York. I came from New York and my wife brought me back home. And I wondered what the hell I was doing. I didn't go to college, barely made it through high school. I'm a hairdresser, right? So I want to go have fun and do this. So owning a business is a different ball game, and you have to be very entrepreneurial. You also have to be a good manager. You have to understand policies and procedures and how to hire, properly. You have to have some idea of cash flow, long-term debt, all those things. It's essential, or otherwise you won't have a business. And then most of us make the lion's share of what we make by being producers. And I would say, quality was everything to me. It still is. It's a little harder, the bigger you get, the harder it is to keep small. So some things drop by the wayside. You lose a few of your values, I think, Anthony, to accomplish a few of your other goals.
Okay, wow, there's so much gold in there. I was going to start scribbling stuff down, but I was just, more interested in listening to what you were saying. So, you talked about learning environment. You talked about the importance of culture. You talked about making mistakes, learning from them. So many, good principles that come with experience, don't they? It's like you jump in the deep end and you start swimming. And, if you're prepared to learn and make mistakes, learn from them, bounce back, get up and go again, you're heading in the right direction. So let me just back up then a little bit. Most of our American audience would have heard of Eric Fisher. You've been around a long time and you're very well known. You've been very successful. Outside of America, Australian, European, UK-based audience, maybe a lot of people don't know who you are. So just for context, how many salons and how many staff do you currently have? And if you don't mind sharing, as a sort of a ballpark figure, what sort of revenue, would a business your size be generating? Just so that people have some context around who you are and what you do.
Well, absolutely. So currently we have 4 salons, and we opened one during the pandemic, which was 3 years ago downtown. So we have east, west, north, south covered. And then about 2 years into the business, and because we hire people from beauty schools, Anthony, we realized that the kids that were getting out of schools just were not trained properly. Mm-hmm. And so I went to the schools. I said, hey, why don't you let me put together a training program for you? I won't charge you. I just want to, but at that time I wanted to open like you did. I wanted to have a lot of salons, right? And my model was too slow. And so they said, Eric, you're a great guy. We love you, but I don't want to do that, So I said, I'm going to be, formative, a competition for you. So I hired the smartest girl I could find. She was a consultant, and we went around and looked at the very best beauty schools in America. And everybody, in this business, they're so nice. They gave me their financials, their build outs, everything you can imagine. Gary Manuel up in Seattle. They were just the two of my best friends at the time, and Jill Kohler. There's so many people that helped me. So we opened a school, 20,000 square feet. We had put a stage right in the middle of it. It's a very unusual school. We made it really modern, and I borrowed a couple $1 million to kick it off, and we were successful the first year. And I spent a lot more money than I need to because I wanted to have such a good school. So our school is great. We have about 180 students. They come from New York, LA. They come from all over the country. We had a bikini model from Hawaii come. I had 2 PhDs come last year, two professors. Wow. So we have all sorts, and I love it. So we just, we picked the people from the school to work in the salons now. And I could tell the school was good, but something was missing. As to your point about that, I can't think of the name of the book, but the book that you shared with me online, I think one of the things it says in there is that they don't teach business. So we came up with a business program and financial literacy, and we realized that etiquette training, things of that nature just weren't being taught. So we started off with this program, and it's been exceedingly successful. And so we opened 2 more salons after that, and we filled them full of students. And once we train them, we feel like they, you train them with hair cutting, you train them with, color, long hair dressing, and then conversational guidelines and how to build that average ticket, how to make more money, how to take more money home. Because we all know, the 2 things that run the show are client count and average ticket. So if you can, focus in on those things, then you've got the guts to have a great business. But you got to think about it. You can't just sit in the back room and wait for, clients to come to you. We tell our students, you got to be the architect of your destination. So, so that's kind of how we started. I still freelanced a lot. I love being a hairdresser. I'm in the chair behind the chair 2 days a week still. I went from 5 to 2. Actually, I went from 7 because we double shift all our locations. We open from 7 a.m. probably to about 10 p.m., 7 days a week. So business has been really good.
Wow.
We were seeing about 14,000 services or performing 14,000 services a month. Now we're probably down to 10,000 after the pandemic. We lost probably 15, 20 stylists. In our companies as a whole, we have about 150 team members altogether. And I'm actually not sure of the gross revenues. It's double-digit millions, I can tell you that. But to be honest with you, when I look at the amalgamation of the 3 businesses, I can't tell you exactly, probably 12, 15 million. I just can't tell you.
Oh, that's a good problem to have, to
Yeah.
not know.
Well, I got to tell you, going over the financials as a hairdresser, I'd rather take a pencil and stick it in my eye. It's not my favorite thing to do, but it needs to be done. And I've been in the trenches so long, Anthony, after a while, you can read those P&Ls just like that. You read the financials, you understand your business so well that any little, something that's out of the ordinary of your normal patterns then draws a red flag. And obviously inflation and supply chain challenges, everything is so challenging right now. It is difficult to make money in the salon business.
Yeah. Okay. You may not like doing it, going through the financials, and a lot of hairdressers don't, but you obviously forced yourself to do it and have become very good at it because you have a great reputation, not just as a creative hairdresser, but as a business person. And there's a lot of work that has to go into that to make it happen and to build the business, that you have. Can I just ask you about the business model that you have? Are they employees? Are they rental, or is it a hybrid? What's the model you've got as far as that goes?
We use a commission base. We start off at 40% and go to 45%, but it's an incentive base too. So what we want our team members to do is to keep constantly moving up the ladder. So we have 12 pricing levels. Every time they reach a new level based on a certain amount of criteria, then they can make more money. So if we broke it down, and it's all a personal development plan for each individual. So if I sat down with somebody out of school and I said, all right, how much money do you want to make? And they said, well, what are you paying? I'd say, hey, that's not the question. What would you like to make? They go, wow, okay, how about 50,000? Let's say they're on the floor already. 50,000. All right. Then we'd break it down. This is how many clients you need. This is what your average ticket needs to look like. This is how often you should bring your clients back. This is how much retail you'd say. This is the commission you're going to make on retail. This is how much tips at 15 to 20% you're going to make. This is what you pay in taxes. This is what we pay for you in taxes. So in other words, if they're working 5 days a week, we know exactly how many clients are going to need and what their average ticket needs to look like. So once they understand that, and I think the most important thing about that is that you're not doing it for them. They have to take ownership of that information. They have to be responsible for building their business. So if I sat down and did a one-on-one with somebody and I said, okay, last quarter, this is what you did, and this quarter you want to increase that by 10%. So let's look at your numbers, your average ticket or your client count or your retail sales or whatever it happens to be. And they set goals up for themselves. They keep tallies, and then they can move the needle. But they have to take that responsibility. And management can't do it. Managers and owners, we're like agents. This is the talent. You've selected that person for a certain reason. You got to let them fly. You got to let them do their own thing. You got to train them. Skills and knowledge are very important, and they're transferable. But the actual talent themselves, it's all about them. And so we are very, participative. We have quarterly awards and talking about compensation. So we pay 40 to 45. And then every quarter they can earn between 1% and 3% more based on, their performance, based on retail sales, based on their absenteeism and just basic compliance issues. Mm-hmm. And then we have, my corporate headquarters, we have up to 5 weeks paid vacation. We have 6 paid holidays. We pay 50% of health insurance for children and for one adult. And we do have a 401k, which is a retirement fund, which we put about 4% or $8,000 per person for the retirement. In fact, we just won Salon today out of the top 200 salons in America. We won best benefits of any salon. So, and I'm proud of that. Does it cost a lot of money? Absolutely.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, those administration costs, health insurance went up 33%. It's millions of dollars, right? So it kicks your ass sometimes. So it's harder and harder to make money. But I just felt like the benefits are something that I'm so proud of, that I can offer my team, that they can retire with a good amount of money, and they can take time off when they need to, have those mental days, mental weeks, and just chill and get paid for it. So I am happy about that. It does cost a lot of money, but it's well worth it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's why you built the business up that you have. All over the world, there's a move towards being self-employed. Independent contractors, freelancers. I mean, it all comes under many different names, but essentially it means a business unit of one: salon suites, rented chair, booth rental, whatever it is. What I want to ask you about is, you've been in business, I think you said 1989. So,
Yep.
a lot of water's gone under the bridge since then. 1989, it would have been a very strong commission salon environment to be in. These days, a lot of people that have had a strong commission salon have caved and gone to booth rental, and you'll hear staff or salon owners everywhere talking about, my staff have left to open up suites on their own, etc. So you've managed to weather all that, have a very strong employer based business model. Has the salon suite thing impacted on you? I get the feeling that what you've just talked about, with all the benefits and all that sort of stuff, has made people realize, do you know what? The grass isn't always greener here. So just talk to me about that. What sort of impact has that independent movement had on your business, if any, and how you've maybe counteracted it?
I think it's had a very inimical effect on business as a whole. I know lots of salon owners that have lost their businesses due to it. I've lost tons of good stylists, and largely in part, and I speak to schools a lot. I have a school with about 180 students. I'd say 95% of them want to go out and rent their own station and have a salon suite. And I think they're looking for, it's not just economics. So we know that, and I can say this pretty patently, that people underreport their income. So that's just a fact. Everybody does it. And I've had lots of people that have had IRS after them. My former employees, in fact, a friend of mine in Kansas City had a model, and she got hit with a $150,000 tip fine just off of tips, because people weren't reporting the tips. And ultimately she was responsible. But I would say it's tough. And with this young generation, and I know I'm speaking to you, so you understand this so well because you went through the program, but people want work-life balance. That's a big thing. They want freedom. They want flexibility, but you don't get that when you graduate from any business. You got to work your ass off. It's not, hey, I'm going to work. Could you imagine Beyonce saying, hey guys, I need work-life balance, no rehearsal tonight? You don't do that when you want to be good. Or Mahomes saying, hey, we got to quit practice with the Kansas City Chiefs because I got to go watch TV with the kids. I sacrificed a great deal to build my businesses. And when you love something, it's not really a sacrifice. I mean, work-life balance, I still, Anthony, I probably put 60, 70 hours, and I'm a photographer as well. So I work all the time, but it's a passion-driven work that I love. So I can't complain. If you love something, you find passion for it, then But the passion comes when you hit that sweet spot. And when you go lease a station, forget about getting better. It just doesn't happen. People say, well, I'm going to get better, but they don't. They stop learning. Learning stops. I don't care if you're a doctor, an accountant. I don't care what you do, unless you have somebody prompting you. If I wanted to drive a car a little faster and stop a little quicker, I might take a Mario Andretti race car course. And in that 1 week, I guarantee you, I would learn so much. And I know a lot of people say, well, I'm going to keep learning. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But very seldom, because we keep track of that, very seldom do they ever do it. And I like, the idea of a team, people coalescing in a wonderful way, producing great results with each other. I love that better. That experience for me, all of us are better than any of us, right? So I don't get why people can work independently. And we know that it's a flawed model. People don't last in that industry. They don't get any better. They never hit the sweet spot. And then they go, I just don't think I like hair as much as I thought, or skin, or whatever they happen to be doing. And the reason is because they never put the energy into hitting that sweet spot. They didn't pay their dues. I know everybody else assumes the dues that you paid, and I know the dues that I paid. And and learning is what passion is made out of. And they say if you don't have passion for your job, you got the wrong job. I think passion is everything, and it's hard to have the momentum. When you've been in the industry as long as I have. So. But you just find it, you keep going.
Yeah, yeah. So many good things you touch on there. One thing I just want to sort of go back to as you're talking, I'm sort of reflecting on, my business when I started my salons was about the same time you started yours. And there's a lot of stuff that people have got today in terms of technology, etc., that we didn't have. So
Right.
The question I want to ask you is this. Is that if you were starting out today, a young hairdresser starting out today with dreams of building a big business like yours, what would make it harder to do today than what it was 30 years ago? And the flip side of that question, what would make it easier to do today?
That's a great question. I'm not sure. Technology's definitely played an amazing role with people being able to book online. I mean, I think 50% of our clients book after 10 o'clock at night. They just book their appointments online. But I think that the thing that's made business harder is that lack of commitment for basic population. I think this is ubiquitous amongst Americans. I don't know how it is in Great Britain or Australia or any other country, but people change their jobs a lot. They call this the resignation generation. So when you train somebody and you put all your energy into making them great and they leave you, it's not only is it heartbreaking, but it's financially devastating. So everybody wants social mobility and they want economic opportunities, and you can have all that, but you have to be steadfast. You can't jump around. You gotta get good, and you got to stay where you are. So I think if I were to do it, I think I was very naive when I had that job in New York City with Roger Thompson. It was easy in those days because we'd have class. I'd have 20 people that wanted to learn what I knew. People really wanted to be great in those days. And I'm not saying, I don't want to marginalize this generation saying that they don't want to be great. I think they do want to be great. They just want to be smarter about being great than we were. They want to use technology and all this. I remember, I did a lot of fashion shows. I worked, London, Paris, Greece. I worked all over. And I remember doing this show in Chicago. I then took it to Athens, but I was using these hair pieces to make these beautiful young models look with classic updos. And I had no idea what to do. So I got the best teacher I could find. And I said, I'll cash whip you. I'll do anything. You got to teach me. And I was already a pretty damn good hairdresser with a good reputation, but I never let my ego get in the way. I just wanted to learn. I was passionate, and I'd have that mannequin and I'd practice and practice and practice. I think you'd have to revisit the salon business. The prices would have to be higher. It's hard to make money. I think you take your P&L today, you turn it upside down, you say, okay, I'm going to pay myself this much. And I want 7% out of the business. And here are my variable costs. Here are the things I can control. Here are strategic costs. This is where I need to put my money. I think you'd be a lot smarter about it. Plus, there's so much more information. Like I listen to your podcast. I've learned so much from just listening to the people you interview. So I think information is probably, it's better and it's easier to obtain than it's ever been before. Yeah. So I would definitely, what did Abraham Lincoln say? He said, if you had to chop down a tree, I'd spend 3 hours sharpening the saw and 1 hour chopping down the tree. I'd spend a lot of time sharpening the saw before I'd open up another business. And I think it's doable, but you got to, one thing that I've learned over the years is you have to be obsessed with the right fit. You can't just hire somebody because they're a good hairdresser. You can't just hire somebody because you like them. You have to look at the skills and knowledge, but most importantly is what innate talent do they have? And when I'm talking about talent, I'm talking about not if they can run faster or jump higher. I'm talking about having the ability to be empathetic or caring, or how do they do under pressure, or are they going to freak out if somebody doesn't like their hair and quit their business? How resilient are they? How tough are they? How brave are they? these are the things, and we test for these things at my corporate headquarters. We have 2 HR people, and anybody that works in my school is, probably the 2 main core values they have: empathetic and caring. That's what we want. That's why our turnover rate is minimal. We never have drops. Our loan default rate in the school is 3%. I think it's the lowest in the country.
Wow.
And I think largely in part because of the right fit. We have great teachers in there. We try not to burn them out. We look for their strengths. We forget about their weaknesses. The weaknesses don't matter. If somebody's great on the floor and they're a learning leader, we put them on the floor. If they're not so good in the classroom, we don't want to make them better for the classroom. We just keep them on the floor. And vice versa. If somebody's good in the classroom, but they're not good on a one-on-one on the floor, we keep them in the classroom. So really working to those strengths. So if I were to do it all again, I never had more fun than when I was freelancing. I loved it. I'm not sure. Of course, I got married, had kids, have businesses, but there's just so many. This is such an amazing industry with so many avenues that you can take and things you can do. There's just no limit to what people can achieve in this industry. So yeah. I don't know if I answered that question.
No. I'm very happy to sit here and listen to you talk. You're a sort of push the button and it'll just come out, and it's great stuff. Do you know what I mean? So I'm very happy.
I'm old. I've been around a long time.
Well, the other thing I want to ask you about is that you mentioned a couple of times that you were in New York and you're no longer in New York. You moved back to where you are, which is Wichita in Kansas. Now, a lot of people, I'm sure in America as well, will go, where the hell's Wichita? Yeah. Well, the only thing I'd ever heard about Wichita was the Glenn Campbell song, right? So before we got on the call, I thought, I better check, because I've never been to Wichita, I've never been to Kansas. I thought, I better find out where it is. And so I Googled it, and Wichita's a city with about 500,000 people, according to Google, and you're bang in the middle of America. So, you don't get to the beach very often. And so the question I want to ask you about is this. You must have thought this as well, and a lot of young people will think this. And what they will think is, do you know what? If you really want to be successful, because I've got big ambitions, you can't do it in a smaller city or smaller town. You got to move to New York or LA or Chicago or Houston, or you got to be in a big city to succeed. So what I'm asking you is, what would you say to that person? Because you've been extraordinarily successful in a smaller city. It's not a small city, 500,000 people, still a reasonable sized city, but it's about the same size as the city I grew up in. It's not that big, and yet you've built a great, phenomenal business there that has national and even international reach. So what would you say to that young person that's thinking, I've got to go to New York or LA or London or Paris or somewhere to be successful?
That's a very salient point. I would say it's going to be a lot harder in a big city. And I did it. I did it in New York. I was in LA for 8 years as a creative director. I love that. But I have students that go to small town USA and they're inordinately successful. And you have to measure what success is. I mean, a lot of people think that means a lot of money. Well, for me, it doesn't. What success means to me is going to work because you want to, not because you have to. You love what you do. You're a day maker. You love the difference you make in people's lives. And you make some money. I mean, obviously, profits are like breathing. You got to have them. They're indispensable. But the money is just a byproduct of your hard work. So I think you can go to small towns easily. I love small towns. I love the big model. But everybody's view of the world is different. If you were raised in Compton, California, outside of LA, your view of the world is going to be totally different than if you were raised in Connecticut and Darien or someplace like that. You could be just as intelligent in both places, just as gifted in both places, just as intrinsically motivated, but your view of the world is just different. And I think that you have to find what's comfortable for you as a business person. And I know a lot of people that, change careers, and they're so fortunate they did. They moved locations and they love the fact they did it. I think you have to have the fortitude and you got to trust your gut to say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this here. I'm going to be a big success. I mean, I have this lovely student, and she lives in a really small town, and she's just I just can't tell you how much I like her. She shows up. She drives an hour to get to school. She's an amazing person. And she wants to open up she's an esthetician, small little salon. And she bought the building in her hometown. I can't even tell you what it is. I'm in Kansas. I don't think I've ever heard of it, but she's so excited. And for her, it doesn't take much. I mean, when you're in a small town, if you make X amount, you're fine, And are you going to be doing, work for the cover of Vogue magazine? Probably not. Are you going to have a publicist? Probably not. You're going to be doing major shows? You could be, but probably not. So there's a certain set of consequences in every destination that you choose, but you got to choose. Your choices are so important that you make, and you can't, these people that want to, they talk to me, I'm going to open a salon. I'm going to serve wine. I'm going to do all this. I go, that is great. That's a very romantic idea. But if your average ticket's $30 and each glass of wine costs you, $4 and you're making a 10% profit, you just lost $1 off that glass of wine. So you got to be realistic, and, you just need to weigh all those things in together and choose what you want to do. I mean, the last thing I want to do was be a salon owner. My wife convinced me. I didn't think I was very smart. I barely made it through high school. I'm a rock star in New York, and I'm traveling around. I'm doing these big shows and shoots, but changed my life for the better. She was right, and I was wrong. So sometimes it takes a bigger force than you to help you make those kind of decisions. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. With the people on your team as a stylist today, you've like had employees since the late 80s. Here we are, 2024, whatever. You've seen lots of generations come through, changing work life expectations, etc., etc. So what I want to ask you is this: what does a successful stylist look like today in your business? Are they part-time? Are they full-time? How much retail do they do? How long do they typically stay with you? That sort of thing.
That's a great question. I just took the OGs, which means old girls, out to dinner. I think we had almost $1,000 just worth of old fashions drinks. That's not including the food. We just had a great time. And these people have different standards and different levels of commitment than my newer people. Now, do they want to come watch? Like we bring some famous hairdresser in every quarter. Plus, we do a big summit where I bring 8 people in. Every year, we do the same thing. Do I expect them to show up at these educational things? No, I don't. I don't. Some do, some don't, because they've already paid their dues. They've been in the trenches. Most of them been to London, to Sassoons. They're my old girls. They've been there, and they're all great, and they're the big producers. The younger generation's different. They care more about flexibility. We had to change our hours. And I can tell you, we turned down a lot of clients, and people complain about not making enough money. And I say, that's because you're working 3 days a week. All right. In order to get full benefits, you can get health insurance at 32 hours, but to get the whole benefits, you need to work 37 hours. That's tough for these young individuals. They just don't want to do it. They want to work less and get more. And therein lies some of the problem. So that's why, again, you have to make sure you got people that want to that want to take ownership of your standards, your vision, your mission, your core values of your company. People don't want to take that ownership. It's going to be really difficult to keep them, period. And we have lost people. But I think, when I look at the difference in the generations, these guys wanted to get good. They really tried. Like I've got somebody coming in tonight that's a great hairdresser. I'll probably have 15 people there in my entire staff. I'm 15. That's it. They're going to be they're at the school today teaching, and it's compulsory that all the students go, so they'll watch them. But when I was a kid, I remember sleeping in my car to go watch Horst and Houston. I remember watching Paul Mitchell and just being blown away as a young student. I remember I worked nights, but 3 nights a week I would get models and work with really good hairdressers. I did that. I still practice. If I do a big music video or something, they want a particular thing, I will make these hair pieces again and again and again. I don't see that kind of dedication today. People want to be great. Like when my dad, he dropped me off at at the airport in Heathrow. I think it was Heathrow. And he looked at me and said, do you want to be good? Do you want to be great? Or do you want to be amongst the best? And I'm like 19, 20 years old. I said, shit, Dad, I don't even know what that means. I guess I want to be my best. I didn't know. But now I understand that, so much better. And it's not that you want to be better than anybody else. You just want to reach your best. It's a sense of purpose when you're good at what you do, as you know, and it's something to be proud of. And I don't see that resilience and that hunger to get great anymore. It just isn't quite there as much, because when you're passionate about something, you just want to do it. I tell young people, it's like a merry-go-round. In the early days, the early stages, you push, and then you can get on board and you can coast a little bit. But if you don't push first, then it's just not going to be. It's not going to be as good for you.
Yeah, good analogy. Well, okay, that's sort of one of my pet subjects at the moment, to really dig into what you've just been talking about. And it's interesting. Like you, I've got kids. I've got 4 kids as well, and 2 of them are Gen Z, and none of them are in the industry, right? And their work ethic is phenomenal. Like they work so hard, much harder than I ever did. They work incredibly long hours. But at the same time, I know of other kids of the same generation, the same age group, who are completely the opposite, who are the stereotype of I want more and I want to do less. So there's a part of me that sort of goes, it's not just young people today, because as soon as you say that, people start pigeonholing you and saying, all right, granddad, do you know what I mean? Like, move on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
Because I don't think it is just young people today. I think it's people today. Like, especially people today don't want to do what we used to do 30, 40 years ago, because we just loved it. People don't want to do it as much anymore. So what I wanted to ask you, and you touched on some of it, was how has your business had to, because you have to adapt. So how has your business adapted to suit the expectations of today's workforce, but still enable you to be a strong, viable, profitable business? You've already alluded to the fact that people work 2 or 3 days a week if that's what they want to do. Great. Do you know what I mean? So what other compromises have you had to make to, attract and keep good people that are young, old, in between?
That's a very great question. And to address the other thing you were saying, I would say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, but you can salt the hay. So we are hay salters. So we constantly do the if-then. If you do this, then you get that. We do that with compensation. We do that with work. We do that with everything. So like we have an awards night tomorrow night, and we give away iPads, Apple Watches, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of stuff, because we want people to show up. It's not mandatory that they're there, but it's 4 times a year. We do the same thing. Every manager will speak as to how their salon's doing. Operations speaks, education speaks, HR speaks. So they get an update of where we are. So I think part of our magic has been definitely keeping everybody in the loop. Everybody's a partner. It's very horizontal. I mean, they see me working as hard as anybody. I sweep up the hair. I'll do whatever. I'll shampoo for somebody. I don't care. So no egos. And I think we're pretty ego-free. And I'd say that our program, our intern program, apprenticeship program, used to be 3 years long when we started. And it was tough. And I was a very much of a dictator, very, very draconian. And a lot of people didn't like me because my standards are so high. And those standards have dropped because we had to. Otherwise, we wouldn't have anybody. So we went from 3 years. Now we are at 9 months, and we have a lot of new clients coming in. And it breaks my heart to, you get 1 day after 3 months if you pass a certain test. So we have a creative director. So we still, Monday mornings, we do class. Tuesday evenings, we do class. Tuesday nights, we do class. Then we personally coach all the young people. And not only do we coach them on hair cutting and just being more efficacious as a hairdresser, we coach them on the numbers. So we look at those key numbers, and we go, okay, your average ticket is down. How are we going to build that average ticket up so you can make more money? And they get these numbers all the time and they go, well, there's three things we can do. It's either color, it's a waxing, or conditioner. And those are really important that they are very ethical when they say these, but people that make the most money have the highest average ticket. So when I'm coaching somebody, I'll say, if you get your average ticket up there, oh my gosh, what a difference. Your numbers are great. Your rebook's great. Your retail's great, but your average ticket is amongst the lowest in the company. So you got to get that up. And if they, where you put your focus, where you get the results. So if they focus in on those things, which we do more, Anthony, people don't exactly want to do one-on-ones. We can't make them mandatory. Everybody's so busy, including me, that it's hard. And we don't like management is not a big part of our company. Managers implement policies and procedures, like I said earlier. We want people to be self-starters. They have to know what's expected of them. But the numbers are the barometer of the business. So they've got to be keenly aware of what the benchmark numbers are, the key drivers for them, so they know how to improve them. And I look at all the numbers constantly for but not for all my stylists. My top 20 percenters, they are home runs. They're booked up 2 years ahead. They're in demand. And nothing says more about somebody's business than the demand. You can say, well, how's your retention? How's your average ticket? How's this? How's that? But at the end of the day, if they're requested, if they're booked up 2 weeks ahead, they're working 4 to 5 days, then they are going to make it really, really make a lot of money, be a good hairdresser. So those standards, and sometimes you have to sacrifice a few of your values of like excellence and all that to hit a few of your other goals. So we've reduced the amount of time they go on the floor precipitously. And nobody really likes that, by the way. The OGs don't like it. I don't like it, but it's a fact of life. You have to do it. Otherwise, you won't get people. Nobody, even my son's 23, he's working in Dallas. I said, why is it that nobody at a beauty school wants to apprentice with any salons in America? Very few. And he says, well, why would they, Dad? He says, what do you get with Google? You get an answer right away. My generation wants an answer right away. We don't want to have to pay more dues. I went to your school, the best school in the country. Why should I have to expect to do an apprenticeship? And I said, well, that's a point well taken. But as you know, if you really want to get good, you need somebody else to teach you to get that good. You can't do it on your own. So there's always that difference between having a job or having a career where you're really good, you really, really love it. It's a balance, and we balance that every day. We, with all our benefits and the lack of people working a full 40, 50 hours, which I get that too, Anthony, I really do. But it's administratively, we're not producing as many services. We still pay the same in benefits, but it cost us. My benefits used to cost me 8.9% of the payroll. Now they're like 14%. So my profits are minimal. 1 month last December, we lost $113,000 that month. It's a 3-pay period. It happens. We were in the millions. You make it up again, but the profits are not where they used to be. So again, you have to rethink profitability, how you want to pay yourself. Maybe you don't need to make a profit. Maybe if you just get 100% of your income off of standing behind the chair, maybe that's what you want. So I think looking at the profit potential and how you're going to make the profit in the very beginning of your career is really important.
Yeah. Okay. I weren't going to go there, but you've touched on it. So I just have to ask this question. What profit margin do you think that a salon today should achieve as a realistic figure? What would you say it should be? You hear a lot of numbers bandied about. As someone who's been in the trenches a long time, you've said salons aren't as profitable today as they used to be. As a percentage of total sales, what would you suggest should be profit? And this is after the owner has been paid.
I think, again, it depends on the compensation for the owner and what kind of management structure you have and financial structure you have. We do a draw every month, so we get X amount. And my wife obviously controls that money and spends it on her shoe allowance. So in other words, I'm always broke. But I would say, we look for between 3 and 7%. And that might not seem like a lot, but it is. It used to be maybe 11%. It's just harder and harder to make that money than it used to be. And there's a balance. And if productivity picks up and you're not turning down clients, if you can make a little bit, I mean, I figured I need to do $1.5 million off my little salons to make profits, $1.5 million. And we did that, and we do make a profit. So yeah, you can base your profit on a client count. You can base it on a stylist count. I know each one of my chair does 72 hours. I can break it down into the hourly chair for profit. But I would say 3 to 7%. And then you got to ask yourself, that's not much money. Is it really worth doing? Because when you open your own business, I mean, I took out the loans. I had to pay him back. I took the risk. I worked 40 hours, 50 hours, 60 hours, 70, 80 hours a week in the beginning. I was the janitor. My wife answered the phone, with a little baby, then 2 little babies. She worked her ass off. And, we started off hand training everybody. So it was a little salon. So we survived. And then we got really busy. We double shifted, opened 7 days a week. We're making tons of money. So just like Costco, 1% of profit doesn't seem like much, but if you're doing $100 million, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I think Southwestern Airlines, they make $300 a flight, but they do, 5,000 flights a day. So it all depends on your model,
But that 3 to 7%, that seems like that's a pretty good number. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, listen, on that note, I've got lots of other things I can ask you, so I'm going to have to get you back for volume 2 later on in the year.
Love to.
So we'll definitely do that. Whereabouts can people connect with you on Instagram or any other social media channels?
I'm on Eric Fisher Hair is my Instagram. They can DM me and be more than happy to respond anyway. I post. I'm a photographer too, so I post mainly work from my students. And my staff. I have 3 people in the North American Hairdressing Awards this year. We won the Midwest Awards with hair and artistic creativity this year. So yeah, I've got a great team, and we post all the time.
Cool. Okay. Look, I will put those links on our website and in the show notes for today's podcast. So if you're listening to this episode with Eric Fisher and have enjoyed it as much as I have, then do me a favor and remember that sharing is caring. So please consider sharing it with a few friends who might also find it inspirational. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating and review on the Apple Podcast app. So to rack up. So So to wrap up, Eric, thank you very much for being on this week's episode of the Grow My Salon Business podcast.
Oh, my pleasure, Anthony. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. If you'd like to connect with us, you'll find us at growmysalonbusiness.com or on Facebook and Instagram at growmysalonbusiness. And if you enjoyed tuning into our podcast, make sure that you subscribe, like, and share it with your friends. Until next time, this is Anthony Whitaker, wishing you continued success.